Welcome to Breaking the Silence in Conversation with. And before we start, you're going to hear a lot of amazing things on this show, not just this one now, but in all the shows to come. And what I'd like you to do is check your judgment at the door and listen to the stories and consider them. I think you'll appreciate what we do here. So, without further ado, CJ, welcome to Breaking the Silence. We know each other and we've been working together for a while now.
We do, yes, indeed.
Yeah, and so why don't you tell the audience about
Oh,
yourself and
sure.
about what you're doing with MUFON and in the local chapter you're making and how it's different from MUFON's main agenda, or at least the agenda that they like to stick to.
Yeah, we're SoCalMUFON.com is the website, and we're all the field investigators that were trained and hand selected by Earl Grey Anderson himself. He was all of our mentors, and I mean,
That's
as
right.
you know, anyone who knows him, I mean, he was all about kindness and acceptance. And I feel like, the beginning of your show, I'm like, okay, he's talking to me. I got to put my judgment at the door because it's me. It's funny how you can experience so many things and still be judgy, but I feel like it's also maybe a survival mechanism inside of you that has to say that can't be real, it's just so you can function, so you can like do your crops and gather your berries or whatever you have to do for the day.
I'd
But
have to agree with that.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So we were all trained by Earl in a lot of kindness and how we can help people. And So Cal MUFON, we're obviously still picking up the pieces. I mean, like, how can you go on after losing someone like Earl? Like, at first I just thought, oh, we can't do this, but like, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to figure out how to continue Earl's legacy and just continue helping people in investigating UFO cases like he taught us how. Earl was also a great debunker. He also, like, there was like, I forget the case of like a Batman balloon, and I could find that to show you later, but he was always so proud of that one. But someone had this
No,
like,
he did. He
yeah,
debunked as much as he said, I think this has credibility and you should really take a closer look at it.
yeah, because he wanted the real stuff, the real, and that's why he got the respect of so many people, because he was an investigator and he did investigate. And so we're just continuing that legacy. And you can also file a report of a case on our website. We just have hyperlinks that click through to the main report on MUFON, so you can come and read our latest blog. You can check out, we updated all our little bios and pictures and stuff like that. And we're just working on trying to find a venue to start back our monthly meetings. If anyone knows of a venue that would be great for us, we need air conditioning, maybe hold about 100 people somewhere central, maybe Pasadena, where a lot of people can get to. We're still looking around for the right place. And the chief of field investigator now. And I'm kind of an ERT case manager. Like, I'm helping because we have a lot of ERT cases and a lot of investigators. So I'm helping Doc Medich,
Explain
who
to the audience what ERT means.
experiencer resource team. The What did Earl, it's the heart of MUFON. It's we reach out to experiencers, and we're not there to investigate a case. We're not there to decide if what happened to you is true or not. We're there to help. We know we have lists of resources, vetted therapists, hypnotherapists around the country, around the world, people who will do it online. And these are people that we've worked with before. No one's on the list that we don't know very well. And then we also have lists of meetings that we trust. Like, I go to any experiencer meeting that I'm allowed to go to just to check
You
it
even come
out.
to ours.
Yeah, I come to all of it, and I'm an experiencer, so it's, I'm looking for my work and helping other experiencers, but I'm also coming for myself, and this is, congratulations. I guess my like first real interview talking about any of this stuff. Earl would always try to get me to talk, and I'd say, no, you talk. I'm going to do my thing in the background. And I
So
really
this
wanted to
is
stay in the background. And
so this is your very first interview.
like, yeah, I mean, like, officially I've done like a little, Earl did a ERT salute, and I said, I was there, I said a few sentences, but I didn't share my story, and I didn't really talk about myself. So dang, I tried to shut this off so I wouldn't have
That's
people.
Signal.
It's Gino.
Yeah.
It's Gino.
And speaking of the devil.
Gino from MUFON. He said, "Oh,
Right.
okay," because I had asked
Don't
him.
talk to Steve Neal. He'll turn you into a nut. I know.
No, I asked him because we just got our statistical report from MUFON this morning, and I said it's okay if I share some of this with you guys because
Oh, excellent. So
I'm
share it.
new. I'm new to interviews, so I didn't even know if I could do it. So we just all got this in our email this morning. So let's see how many 374 sightings reported to MUFON CMS during the month of June of this year. So 271 were in the United States, 15 Australia, United Kingdom, 15 Canada, 10. We got France, Brazil, Germany, New Zealand. I mean, the list goes on. It's Bulgaria, Kenya, Paraguay, Croatia, Greece, Chile, India, Morocco, Romania. I mean, it's a long list.
What
And
about
then
California?
well, then when you get to the states, that's just the international breakdown. So
Mm-hmm.
California, 33 reports. We're at the top of the list usually. Texas, right on our heels with 22. Washington, Florida, Colorado, Arizona, Oregon, like all, but they're pretty much all the states are listed here. And then the cool thing that I thought it says here, is it at the very end? It says the most impressive is that there were 14 landings, hoverings, or takeoffs reported, 26 entities observed, and a number of ERT cases were reported. So more landings and more beings than usual in the month of June. But we get those every month, and they're so cool. I love looking at the statistics around the world and seeing all the countries that people report to us from.
Wow, that's amazing. You got an inside scoop right here.
You got an inside scoop. You can always email me and ask
We're
me.
all working together.
Yeah,
There's been a lot of pushback uh, from the experiencer community with regards to their trust for MUFON.
sure.
Um, but I know the people in Southern California MUFON, and I know they're not, giving information to Arrow or the Pentagon or anything like
No,
that. So,
no.
if you believe that, you need to research that for yourself, and you will find that none of that's true.
None of
And
that's true.
certainly, yeah, and certainly don't ask Wikipedia.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but
Yeah,
there's a lot of misinformation about everything out there. But also, I guess I would just say if you're an experiencer who's looking for help, the ERT, the Experiencer Resource Team, is a safe place for you to go. These are safe people for you to talk to. It's not going to be the nuts and bolts guys on the other end. It's going to be people, most of them are experiencers, so they really know. And, it is what it is. Every organization is made of individual people, and not everyone's going to get along. And I have to say, I worked in TV for a lot of years. Don't get involved in a TV show. Anyone who's done a TV show with anyone hates the other organizations involved. And I think a lot of the complaints come from TV, getting involved in a TV show with MUFON or something. And it's like, you know, I don't know.
yes,
For
I've
me, I
done
don't
plenty
want
of them in the '90s, and they twist and edit what you say to be
that.
in favor of what they want the narrative to be.
Yeah, it
They
sounds
misquote you.
legit.
They even dub you sometimes, and
Yeah,
I know I do
well,
all this stuff, and they think I'm a dummy, but I'm not. I mean, I've worked in probably in most cases, especially today, I've worked in the film industry before these people were even born, and I know all the ins and outs, and I know all the tricks in editing because hey, I'm a visual effects guy, filmmaker, and editor.
right.
So yeah, I don't trust them at all, and that's been a big problem trying to get people to come forward and speak about their experience with us because they're very worried because of my background in Hollywood that I'm one of those Hollywood dinglings that well, let's exploit this person and really get our ratings and make some money and stuff, and who cares what the truth is, we'll just distort that, and we'll if she saw a really beautiful creature, we'll make it into some scary monster so we can have it in the trailer and people go, oh, I got to see that. None of that happens with us, and
No.
none of that happens with MUFON either.
No,
So
I mean, you're safe with the ERT team, and if you
yeah,
don't feel safe for some reason, I'm sorry, and you can always reach out to me. My email is mufoncj@gmail.com. We have to make a little MUFON, specific Gmail, and you can ask me questions. I'm gonna respond. It'll be me, and I'll let you
yeah,
know how
and it's
best I can.
private. And
Mhm.
I mean,
It's my
I've
own
been
Gmail. I made it up.
yeah, I've had people share with me things that they never wanted me to share with anyone for any reason in email, in private conversations, and I've always honored that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no there's a ton of people who will talk about wild stories. I don't have to share someone's story who doesn't want to, and I would just never.
Yeah.
I
Do you
would share
feel they're just trying to get attention in their 15 minutes of fame?
sometimes, I've had people say
Sometimes.
it does happen sometimes. Like there was I
Yeah,
got a report not
it
long
does.
ago where I was like, "How can I help you?" I mean, a very long report, and he says, "Well, MUFON needs to come to my house right now with cameras and film all of this and show it to the Pentagon." And I was like, I mean, it just felt like he just wanted to be filmed and get famous somehow. So, and we do get people like that, and we can't help them. We don't have, that's the other thing. Sometimes people are like, why aren't you putting a camera on my house? And like, we're not a nonprofit. We're all volunteers. We don't have cameras that we
Yeah,
can
we'll
put
just dip into our budget and buy a bunch of expensive cameras and hook them up to your
Yeah,
camera and you
we
hook it
don't
to a remote server and pay for the server and pay for the service. And yeah, I know.
like I had to buy my own tri-field meter, and I when Earl passed away I got his radiation detector, but like we have to buy our own equipment, so we can't go out and buy cameras to put on people's houses, but there are low budget options, and we can help you figure out maybe one to put on your house if you're interested. But I think a lot of people have higher expectations from making, everyone puts in a report and wants, maybe they're expecting something, and I would say put in the report and expect nothing, and you're going to get a human who reaches that. That's the thing about MUFON. There's all these other reporting agencies, and they're cool, and some of them have cool effects and graphics and whatever. But I've reported my case to them. I've never heard back from these other organizations. And when I reported it to MUFON, Gino, who is now our
Hmm.
state director, called me within a week or so and spoke to me. And then after he spoke to me, he said, "Can I introduce you to my state director, Earl Gray? He'd like to talk to you as well." And I said, "Sure." And I spoke to human beings. So I feel like that's the difference. And go where you feel safe. If you don't feel safe, go somewhere else. And.
Do you find, as I do overall, that I would say, to quote George Knapp, he said over 75% of the people that he interviews um, look at these experiences as being something positive in their life, despite some of the terrors and stuff that's happened. But overall, none of them want to be public. None of them want to write a book. Very few of them want to come forward at all.
True.
So, what's the point of making up something if you're not going to benefit from it somehow in a
Yeah.
monetary way by having right away the skeptics say, well, there's one guy did a comment on our site
Hmm.
in the post section or community as they call it, and he said the minute the guy said he had a book, I was done. If you're selling a book, then you're not telling the truth. He was
Yeah.
immediately blocked from the channel. That is a really nasty judgmental way of
Yeah.
dealing with things. And I said at the beginning of this program, leave your judgment at the door.
Yeah.
Nobody's forcing you to watch this or review this material. But sometimes I wrote a book, and
We all buy
it's
each
been
other's books.
it's been out for since 2017. I did a film too. Uh, Really, literally, almost no money was made from it at all. I don't
Yeah.
even look for it. In every person I talk to, from Joe Stillwell to Deborah Cobble,
Right.
who we're doing a show on, they didn't see any money from the books.
No, unless you're a New
Bud
York
Hopkins got
Times
most of
bestseller.
it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not about that. If somebody writes a book, it's because honestly, overall, I find they want to share, and they're hoping that someone else out there reading it's going to feel
Yeah.
better about themselves. Because a lot of these people, until they realize that there
Exactly.
are other people claiming the same things, they worry about their mental health. They think they might
Yeah.
be crazy. That's their biggest concern. This is legitimate.
Because
So
people have so many different details, and like I know for me, I'm always looking for confirmation of the details in my story that I don't see elsewhere. So having a broad variety of people sharing a variety of experiences really does help, because there may be something that's happened to one person that didn't happen to another. And I read all those books, it's just part of my research.
all
And
those books, yeah.
yeah, and some of the stories I relate to, some I don't, but I know there's someone else relating to the stories I don't relate to. So it's good to share your experiences, even if you like, I have some things that have happened to me that I'm just like, I have not heard anyone describe before, and it sounds crazy, and I don't like talking about it. So um but someday someone's gonna. Someday
Yeah.
someone who says, "Yep, that happened to me too." So I'm
So
confident.
I know you read Susie Henson's book, The Dual Soul Connection, and in reading it, did you if there's something that you feel is too crazy to admit to or discuss, that's fine. You can say no, I'm not going to do that. But and we always do that on the show. But did you? I'm curious if you found anything in it to
Yeah,
relate to what you just said. You said that you look for things to be said in books or by other people's testimony that might verify your own experience, because there's no way they could have known that.
sure. Yeah,
It
I
never
mean the
crossed you.
description. Yeah, no, yeah. Many of her descriptions definitely I can relate to. I can't relate to a lot of the stuff that people have come up with under hypnosis. I've never done it, so my memory stopped at sort of the classics, like when I'm reading all these stories and like Bud Hopkins' book, that all the stories before they start the hypnosis, I've got most of that stuff, like most of those kind of memories. I
Right.
just don't have so like I don't have the memory of being on a craft with a being. I don't have like that kind of memory. And I'm so I'm an autodidact. So even, when I had questions about what hypnosis was, I went and got a certificate. I got certified to do hypnosis, and now I'm working
That's
on,
right. Yeah.
and I may not do it on anyone ever, but I just want to understand it the best that I can. So I don't have, although I've read a lot of the experiences and other people's stories about, being on the craft and all that stuff. And, you know, probably, Earl would always say, CJ, I have no doubt you were abducted, and probably multiple times. Cause I would say, look, I just verified this other thing, like I found, an article, which I sent to you, you can plug it in, about like something I saw as a child. And I'd be like, look at this. And he goes, CJ, you don't have to prove it to me. Like, I believe it. He believes in you before you believe in you. Like he's just
Hmm.
knows, he had such an encyclopedic knowledge of so many cases that the minute you're telling him something, he's already thinking of 20 cases that he heard that happen. And whereas when you're coming in, especially as a new experience, you haven't heard these stories. Like I hadn't read UFO books. Like 4 years ago, I was not reading UFO books. I had never read Communion. I looked at the cover in stores as a child and was like, no way am I looking inside of that book. No way. And I remember it was like in like high school, I saw a show about Betty and Barney Hill, and I said to my mom, I saw one of those once. I saw a UFO once, and she goes, "Me too," like that. And I go, "What do you mean, me too? What do you mean by that?" And she said, "Well, and we grew up on a ranch in East County, San Diego, off Old Highway 80, up toward Alpine, up near all the Indian reservations and stuff. We were in the back. It was like Hell's Angels and egg ranches and like cattle and stuff like that. So we were kind of in the high desert in like a chaparral kind of an area. And, on the backside of a lot of the San Diego military, like the Top Gun, they use our space because it's all empty to practice their flights and stuff. So but she and her friends had seen on one of the mountains around our ranch just the lights coming up, which I've gotten many cases from military, just the light coming down, touching the bottom and like going up and down. Um, and then she said, and I saw beings. And I go, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, beings? And she said, well, she was woken up in the middle of the night as a child because she grew up on the same ranch that I spent a lot of time on as a child and lived on for part of my childhood. She felt woken up, felt called toward the kitchen dining room area where the windows are. And she said she looked out the kitchen window, which led to a roof. So we'd climb out there all the time as kids. And it was over the pig pen and it was just a ranch. So,
Right.
she said she described three beings out the window, two that sounded like a classic gray alien to me. And she said, but one um, was a small three. Sorry, that's Lisa. It's Earl's wife. No date yet. Okay.
Oh,
No date yet for Earl's memorial. So look, we're getting breaking news right here, but something will be coming soon down the pike. I'm sure down the
okay.
pike. And one was like about 3 feet tall and covered in hair, she said, or like a little, like from fur from head to toe. And I go, what, like a raccoon? Did you just see a raccoon out there? And she said, no, it was like a little person covered in hair. And years later, I found this interview between George Knapp and John Lear, and he's reading out of the Air Force physics manual. And he says, one, but he talks about the grays are the most commonly reported, but another being commonly cited is this little 3 foot high being covered in hair or fur, and they are known for being very strong. I don't
Hmm.
know what that means. I don't know what somebody saw this little guy do that the Air Force labeled them as stronger than you might think, but they're
Hmm.
stronger than you might think physically. And that's just like another thing that just from my childhood where the more I study because and it's I'm a doubter all the time, leave my judgment at the well, I bring my judgment in, I just try to keep my
Right.
mouth shut because it's hard to
Sure.
leave the
Sure.
judgment out the door. But when my mom told me that, I remember thinking, well, she's nuts, obviously. Like little hairy beings, and all these years later, not so nuts, huh, Mom? The Air Force backed up her story. So,
Wow. So, um, when I was reading Susie's book,
hmm
I already had memories, much like she discussed in her childhood. Um, and they were somewhat buried. Then they weren't anything I needed hypnosis for. They were things I clearly remembered.
yeah,
But by the time I was a teenager and I was looking back on them, I just thought that I had a very fantasy prone imagination. And because I was an only child, my dad moved out. My mom and dad split up early when I was like 7 years old. We tend to make our own little worlds, but I always was in my own world. I mean, from day one, even when I did have my mom and dad. But I remember them coming at night, and off we'd go, and I'd be with all these other children, and I'd be in this beautiful craft, I guess. I don't know at that time I knew that's what that was. It was just some place that was
yeah,
really cool and very futuristic, and we did all these amazing games and played. And you know what I'm talking about. It's in Susie's book.
yep,
And when I was reading it, my emotions started to erupt, and I got very emotional. I mean, the way if you've ever had someone you love die in your arms, or had a moment like that, maybe it was one of joy as well. You get these emotions that make you tear up, and I was getting those, and they were so strong. I had to put down the book, and I had to go outside and just stare up at the sky and just cry.
yeah.
It was I couldn't
Because it's
control it.
validating. It's
Yeah.
validating.
Well, but it was more than that. It triggered. So,
Mhm.
without hypnosis, the book had that effect of triggering. And as I dared through the rest of the way of the book, I kept hitting more and more and more. But the
That's
childhood
great.
stuff was really quite astounding. So I don't know if you picked up any of that or not.
I mean, just because I have no memory of being on the craft or
Right.
seeing a being other than, and I'll talk about like there's certain that I have, I guess, like a psychic connect. I don't know. I can describe it later when we get more into my story. But
Hmm.
but yeah, I don't have those. I've heard a lot of people refer to, they call it like the space college or the space school, that they felt like they were at space camp. And playing with those cool, amazing technologies, toys, we might call them, but like technologies and stuff. I just don't personally have those. But it's so important for my work to know all these stories because I meet
Yeah.
people who have had those experiences and do remember them without hypnosis. And some people need hypnosis. So,
You
um,
do need that database very much
yeah.
in your line of work. Um, what was
When
I
I
going
hear
to
you mentioning a book, I go out and get it. I heard you talking
say?
about it, so I
Well,
was
then there's Jeff Selver's book. Uh,
yes, I haven't read it yet, but I'll
yeah,
need to read that
yeah,
one.
yeah. I'm reading that now, and they all seem to dovetail together rather neatly. And yet, these people never, the three of us never knew each other, but had the same types of memories. Um, what was I going to say? I thought it was a really good one, and it just slipped my mind. I know one of the things that Susie talks about is the children projecting uh, holograms, making these beautiful symbols and objects
Yeah,
dance and play. I remember about that. In fact, I did that drawing of Vaughn. I think showed it at Contact in the Desert. She asked me to do a drawing of it, so obviously she's aware of it now too. That
yeah,
these things have been going on, but there's definitely a real synchronous going on here that's quite astounding. So
agreed.
can you tell us a bit more about your experiences that you do recall, since you haven't had hypnosis?
Sure.
And it's not always necessary. It isn't.
Yeah,
And if some people are afraid, and I will say, look into it, study it, read up on it, know that you're going to get people. who are mean and are going to tell you it's all lies and it doesn't work, and you're going to get people who give you the straight up truth about it.
Yeah.
You got your gut to guide you on that one in your
Yep.
heart, but you don't have to do it if you don't want to. No one can say you have to have hypnosis. It's just
Exactly.
it's not
When
how
I
we work.
even when I go to Vaughn's support group, the Sarah support group meetings,
Right.
many people in the rooms have not been. They're not all people that have been regressed by Yvonne. Many of them have not been, and you never know. The door's always open on that, you know. So,
Yeah. So
um,
about you,
but not
about
yet.
you.
I mean, no. I mean, it could be.
Okay.
I don't know. I
Well,
just don't
but
know.
what you do remember.
Yeah. So what I do remember clearly, clear as a bell, like it was yesterday, and I've never, it's not a recovered memory. I've always remembered it, but I was about I don't know the exact year because it was the 70s. You know, we didn't have watches and that told us where we were. If we had missing time, you know, we were told, go outside. I don't want to see you till it's dark. And then you can come in and eat, bathe, and you can go watch TV and go to bed. And that's pretty much how it was. So people will say, did you have missing time? And I go, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if anyone would have missed me for an hour. You know, it's a ranch. People are working and
That's
outside.
true.
So I was walking home from the bus stop, which dropped us off over at Holly Road and Old Highway 80, if you want to Google Maps it. And I'm walking up Old Highway 80 toward our ranch with a boy who I don't remember really walking with very often or ever really, but I'm walking with someone, walking with this boy who I believe lived in the house with all the statues. If you go up the road, you'll see all the statues.
That's
And we're
creepy.
walking. Right. I'm looking down at the ground, and it's hot like it always is. So all I know is it's during the school year. It's warm, so it's either the beginning of the school year or the end of the school year. Um, and I'm looking at the ground, and he grabs me by the shoulders, pushes me up, kind of in this little ditch area under these oak trees, and says, "Shh, they're watching us." And I said, what? I look at him, and he's looking up, and I follow his finger up, and right above us is, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to guess the size like I had to do when I made my report, but I'm going to guess like 30 feet, something in that, a classic silver disc, floating in like a mist or a cloud, which I had never heard of before. So I thought that made it sound weird, but I've seen so many reports of this mist that is around the UFO, and I remember the colors. All I can ever say is like an opal. That's always been the closest, but like that kind of colory
Wow.
green
Yeah.
all over. And I remember like a breeze. I mean, I remember the leaves rustling, and then the craft started fading before my eyes until I could see through it, and then it was gone, and then it was there, and then it faded and faded, and it was gone, and then it was there, and then it faded again, and it was just gone. And I walked home and never spoke of it again.
Wow. So
Um,
this was like a lone tree in your on your walk home.
no,
That
there's
was
little oak trees all along. There's
there was
all
an oak
kinds
tree.
of trees.
Okay.
It's an old highway, but these were an oak tree, and I had to look up the location. I can find it out. I can pinpoint. I can show you the oak on Google Maps.
Okay.
But
Because I might, if I have time, I will. You know me, I'll
sure,
recreate
yeah,
it.
you can put it in. I showed it to Earl. It was like just
You
and
described it very well. I
yeah,
could see it just, and it was just a
yeah,
breathtaking moment.
the colors were
Yeah,
so
I can see the
beautiful.
color, like
And
an
my
opal.
only thought when the craft was over me was, it's them. I remember thinking it's them, and I felt like family. I felt like I knew them, like a
Okay,
love, like someone I love.
that answers another question that I was going to ask. Now I don't have to ask it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's very common.
so I felt like a very, like, I almost want to cry, thing like family, like
Well,
love.
there's those emotions I told you about.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that's all I knew, is I felt I knew who they were, yet I have no picture in my mind of who they are. Um,
Now, you've seen other craft in all your reporting and all your studying, and you know what Lazar's sport model looks like, and Billy Myers and all that. What did it come close to, if it did, to anything?
I mean, I in my memory, it is like a smooth, like I don't, it's not like a, and also I'm under it. So I'm seeing,
Right.
it's all about perspective. If you're on the side of the mountain, you might have seen a dome on top. All I
Right.
saw was perfectly perfectly smooth, like liquid metals, silver, and then the mist with the opal colors, like everywhere, all around, like magical, beautiful colors. Um, and And then the next thing that sort of started happening was I started having recurring nightmares of a man who would come onto our ranch. I would hear a sound, and the only way I can describe the sound, and it happened at the beginning of every dream, and I knew the minute I heard the sound what was about to happen. And the sound to me sounded like a barrel rolling down a dock, or when you're rolling a
Oh,
barrel, like rolling a barrel, this very distinct rolling sound, which you hear on a ranch. You're rolling tires, you're rolling things. It was a rolling sound. But I don't, I've heard people describe lots of sounds, but that was the best. And I very much focus on not changing my descriptions from since childhood. Cause as you hear things, you're like, oh, maybe it was more like that, but it was a barrel
no.
rolling sound. And a guy with a hat, a cape, and a cane that was a sword would literally come and kill everyone in my family. And I would run around, and my family was all frozen. And I would run around and grab each person and go, run, run, he's coming, he's coming. And no one could see me. No one would really move. Like, I don't want to say they were frozen, but I remember them being statuesque and me grabbing aprons and pants, and then he would kill them. And I was trying to warn everyone, run, get away, he's coming, he's coming. I don't know if that's related, but I've heard military guys who have encounters who soon start having apocalyptic style nightmares. And all I could think of is, to a kid, that's apocalyptic, having your
Yeah,
family stuff in front of
sure.
you. Like,
Oh,
as
you bet.
a child, I didn't have a nuclear war reference. I did not know that could happen. So as a child, your worst nightmare is everybody disappearing. So, um, and that's also the time when I still, and it makes me think of something Barney Hill said, which is, the eyes are always there.
Right.
There are eyes that I could see all the time in front of me, not like an eye in the wall, like in front of me, huge eyes that are staring at me all the time, to where I felt watched, I felt scared. And when I would blink hard, I could really see them. And so I remember googling, like, do you see reflections of your own eyeballs when you close your
Yeah.
eyes sometimes, like trying to figure, is it like, and I asked Mather, my husband, like, have you ever seen eye? And he's like, no, I often I bring him stuff and he goes, no, I've never. He calls himself the UFO muggle. He's never had any of these no kind of experience whatsoever, which is why he
There's a
clowns.
reason for that too.
Yeah, I said, you're still young.
That's
um,
that's the whole story.
yeah. So,
So
mhm.
you did see, did you see the movie that was done with James Earl Jones? Is that what you saw years ago with playing
I
Barney?
don't. It might have been. You know what? No, it wasn't. It was a documentary
Have you
style.
seen it?
I
Have you
haven't.
seen it?
I
You have.
haven't seen it. I should watch it. Yeah,
Okay.
I've seen
Yeah,
parts
there
of
there are several versions of it, of lesser and greater quality on YouTube. And Mary and I the other night found a very very good, beautiful color copy. That movie is so amazing to
it. Okay,
watch because you
I
consider
will.
when it was made, who it was made by. The director cared very much about the subject matter.
Good.
There was nothing made up like with Travis Walton's Fire in the Sky debacle.
Right.
Everything was done exactly to the book because I had read the book. I had also heard the tapes of them actually, uh, from from Dr. Benjamin,
Right.
Simon Benjamin, of them. And Estelle Parsons and James Earl Jones are just such fabulous actors, and they really, really nailed them. And it was all accurate to what was recorded.
Right.
I think that everybody should see that film, and then you'll
I will.
understand. Yeah, then you'll understand that they never said that their grays, that basically is what they described, were from Zeta Reticula. That's not true at all.
That was
Yes,
later when. Yeah.
that was the map, I know. And then so today people call them Zetas and all this stuff, and it's like, well, we really don't know
Everybody
that.
likes a word, right? Everybody likes
But,
a
but
word, so they
watch
don't
that
have
film.
to. What was that?
Watch that film,
I will. Oh, I will for sure.
and I warn you, it's very emotional. It's very edgy. I mean, you feel on edge when you're watching it, and
I'm sure
they
I
they did
will.
a fabulous job. And I don't know why Hollywood can't continue to do good work with the subject matter.
Well, I
Give me
definitely.
a budget, Hollywood, and I'll do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So that was one of your experiences, and that
Yep.
that is really striking. I mean, I'm a very visual person, and
Yeah.
I just saw the whole thing, and now I want to bring it to life.
Great.
Yeah, and of course, I was going to ask you that question. Did you? And I will ask it anyway.
Mhm.
When you were very young, did you feel like you fit in, or did you feel like you were kind of different from the other
No,
kids you
I
were
mean,
with?
I always wonder, how is that something everyone feels? No, I definitely, like, I always felt like the Marilyn Munster of my family. I felt like different in some way. I don't mean pretty, I just mean different. I was different in some way. Um, and
Hopefully, not Marilyn Manson.
No, no, Munster, she was the pretty one that you're like, how did she get in this family? She was like beautiful
Uh-huh.
and, and normal. And
Right.
but and I wasn't, not that, just the differenceness of her, I guess, is what I felt. And yeah, I always felt like there was going to be a time and a place when I was supposed to do something, but I didn't know what it was. And that I'm always, I'm a little bit of a hobby prepper, like doomsday prep. I've got, like, people always say, I'm going to go to your house. Like, I'm always like positive there's going to be an Armageddon or something. Like, through my I always had visions of comets and asteroids hitting the earth. As a child, growing up in my 20s, less so
Hmm.
today, but I've always had these visions of like fireballs hitting the earth. So even when I was younger, I'd be gassing up the car and just kind of looking up, like. And that's the other thing, when you've seen a UFO, especially as a child, a lot of people see them older, I guess, but you're always looking up. Anytime I'm driving anywhere, if I'm not driving the car, I'm looking up. When I go outside to do yard work, water plants, I look up. I listen for those phrases, you hear from people. If I could have thrown a stone, I could have hit it. If I had a slingshot, I could have hit that thing. If I had a baseball, I could have hit that thing. And that's how I was, like, 20. It was about 20 feet above my head. I mean, it was right above the oak tree top. And if you look at the oak trees,
Right.
they're not huge. They're like scrub brush. It's a chaparral uh,
Sure. I'm
area.
familiar
So,
with Oak Tree. I spent a lot of time growing up in the countryside.
and then, then I found later about the miracle of Fatima kind of connection that I had, and
Oh
that
yeah.
happened for an oak tree. And that made me, when I realized that the tree that I had been hiding under was an oak tree, and then I read the Fatima thing, it just made me start to wonder about oaks, or do they have any special properties, or are they just such a common tree that people see? They're easy for the UFOs to kind of just hover, so they're off radar and closer to the ground. And they're often round shaped, so maybe it helps them high. I really couldn't tell you, but the connection of oak trees.
So you felt, as I did, that there was something very magical and almost conscious about co- Oak Tree.
Yeah, I feel that way. I
Me
definitely am.
too.
Curious about the oak. I'm curious to know shamanistic, and I've done some basic googling. I'm always reading and expanding my knowledge, and I just haven't found anything specific. But I personally feel there's something magical to the oak.
Yeah,
Um,
there is.
you know,
I don't know why, but there is. But you just triggered that because I spent so much time in Marin County back in the late '50s, early '60s, and it was just raw countryside back then. It's nothing like what they've done to it today.
yeah,
They pay paradise and put up a parking lot. That's exactly what they did, and it's a shame
no,
what they did.
yeah,
But before all that happened, where my grandmother's house was, it's just, I- in the middle of the country, and I used to just, as you were talking about, I'd be 6, 7 years old. I'm going to go out and look for lizards and stuff. Grandma, okay, we'll be back. Time for dinner. All
right.
by myself. I'd hike up into the hills there, and I'd see all kinds of wild animals and everything, and nothing ever happened to me. But I felt that I was being watched, being taken care of, and the oak tree I found very comforting and very drawn to. And I would go and sit under them, lean back against them, and just watch everything,
Hmm.
mostly the sky.
Yeah, because they're sparse. You can get shade and also see the sky above you at the same time with most oak trees. They're not,
Right.
because the leaves aren't in a way where you can't see the sky. But yeah, they're lovely. And I always collect all the pine cones and acorns and stuff when I go camping. I love them.
So you sent me pictures of your great grandmother. I
Yep.
I had the privilege of knowing both of my great grandmothers, which is pretty amazing.
Well,
And
great great grandmother. So I didn't get to meet her.
oh,
This
it's
is my
great. Okay,
great
I've
great.
only seen pictures of my one of my great grandmothers, and she
Yeah.
was a pure blooded Blackfeet Indian.
Wow.
Amazingly enough,
Amazing.
that was my grandmother's side, and that was an experience in myself. But
Yeah.
so. So she actually
So yeah, and
experienced Fatima.
that's what I had always been told my entire life. So, one of the books that I was reading to join the MUFON Experiencer Resource Team was Jacques Vallée's Passport to Magonia. And he talks about Fatima in that book. And I couldn't believe it because my whole life, since I was a baby, I have been told about Fatima. My grandma in her Boston accent, your great great grandmother was there for the miracle of Fatima. And if you doubt it in any way, I mean, it was just tears. I mean, the family, and this is how stories are told in families. I mean, people really pass them on, and it was told to me in a way where I was to understand this is very true, very real, very emotional. I know it sounds crazy, it's going to be hard for you to believe, but you need to believe this because your great great grandmother was there and she told us all the story herself. So I called Earl again and I said, are you kidding me? So I can trace back to my great great grandmother. Her name was I believe my aunt said Helen Bastides, and her answer, all our ancestors were. My mother was 100% Azorian, so we're from the Azores. But at some point, Helen moved to the mainland Portugal, and that she was in Fatima for the miracle of Fatima, and exactly what I learned as a child is in the book. So my family are not readers. There was no UFO books. We were Catholics, Portuguese Catholic immigrants living on a farm. My great grandparents lived on the farm. They barely spoke English. There was, Portuguese being spoken. And we worked hard in the trees. We came in and watched like Happy Days at the end of the night and went to bed. Like that's kind of we didn't get the newspaper. We didn't do the crossword puzzle. We weren't like Mather's family doing the crossword. We were not those kind of people. We went to the swap meet and we like grew oranges and cattle and stuff. So, but I was told that it rained and their clothing was wet. And then the sun came out and their clothing dried almost instantly. And then it rained flower petals, rose petals, I was told, from the sky. All of this happened. It's all in the books. And everybody described the same things that I was told as a child. And that the Blessed Mother appeared to everybody, and my whole life, everybody had roses smashed in their Bibles or rose petals, and I didn't realize that was an homage to Fatima in my family. We
Wow.
always had Bibles and rose petals, and I did some. I've read it. I read every book I can about Fatima,
Mhm.
and they say, yeah, it rained something like this, the small roses, not big rose petals like the kind you buy for someone, but if you see in someone's front yard these little kind of bushy little round white roses or pinkish
Mhm.
roses that you see, and they're being little clusters. That's what they were describing as these little, almost like flakes. They're like flakes is probably what was raining from the sky, and she apparently had some of those exact rose petals in her Bible
I was
held.
going to ask. Yeah, did
I don't
any
know
of
where that
those?
Bible is.
Did anybody save those? And chances are, if by now they were located or someone talked about it, they would be taken away from them.
Yeah,
That's
but
what
she had
happens.
them in her Bible, and that's why everyone in my family still puts a rose
Wow,
or rose petals in their Bible. So
that's
yeah, so I guess if you want it, and my mom and my aunt also said she saw, when I had asked her some history about our family, because after I read the book about Fatima, and I said, I'm reading a book that kind of compares Fatima to a UFO sighting, and not
yes.
well, yeah, not knowing how my aunt would react because they're Catholic and that, it's a very legitimate miracle of the Virgin Mary. But she said, oh my gosh, I've seen them too. And I said, what did you see? And she described two things. She said, well, one, she's definitely seen orbs and things like that at the ranch. She also may have had some psychic medium sort of abilities, this particular aunt, but she also said, I saw a mothership. And I go, what's that mean to you? What does that mean to you? And she said, humongous, the size of a football field, like shaped like
Yeah.
a star, slanted sideways from above our ranch where we lived. And then she said it faded out of sight, which is what happened to mine didn't zip off, it was just gone.
They
um
do that. They also
yeah,
fade in out of
yeah,
nowhere.
yeah.
Do
So,
you remember in Close Encounters? Because you just triggered me again. I'm
mhm,
because I've watched that movie 100 million times, and I probably know more about it and the behind the scenes stuff than most people realize. But do you remember in the very beginning? There's the old man, and he can't speak English, and he's bent over, and he's got sunburn on his face, and he says in Spanish, "The sun came out last night.
Mm-hmm.
It sang to me."
Yep.
And then you just hear him under his voice go, "Mm-hmm," and then they cut because it was very, very well done
You're giving
the
me
way.
goosebumps right
But
now just
but
talking about
sure,
it.
but that you understand what was going
Yeah,
on in that scene, and you will find in that film that there is an Easter egg about so many things in the history of the subject matter that he's weaved into that film, but the general public just thought it was a great little science fiction movie.
that's the
It
kind of
was never.
storyteller
It's
Spielberg
not.
is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not science fiction. And there's. I don't think there's a single part of that film that is.
Yep.
So, and
And that's what
talking
the
to
song
Jacques Vallée,
mm-hmm.
I, spending time with Jacques and him telling me things about that film that I can't share, unfortunately, only because not because I'm harboring a secret, but because I don't know if he meant me to share it. So, and I haven't been able to get hold of him to even ask him if I can. And I wonder if he'll remember what he told me. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, Fatima was definitely in the film too, because an Easter egg to that, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And
you went to Portugal, and Did you go to the site?
I did not go to Fatima. I will go back. I was in Portugal for 2 weeks. I did not make it to Fatima. My friend went to Fatima, who we also saw in Portugal. But I'll get there. I'll get there again. We'll be there again. We were on a specific mission with the family this time, and Fatima's a little out of the way. I mean, if you see it, it's inland. It's a couple hours right out of any city, and it's very if you look at it, it's just the church. It's all just this church that you go to. So I just deemed to
You'll
save it
get
for
there.
next time. I'll get there and I'll get to the Azores again in the future. But
So
yeah,
in the 10 minutes that we have left,
sure,
because we try to keep these to an hour,
sure.
um, is there anything else you'd like to share with us about your own experience? I know you talked about the beautiful ship that you saw over the oak tree. Was there
Yeah,
anything else that you'd like to share?
yeah, yeah. Hold on. Let me see. I made all my little notes. Let me find my
Make
notes.
notes. Okay.
I do. Well, I don't want to skip all the good stuff. Oh, you know what I would like to talk about is okay, two other experiences I had. So in the
Okay.
90s, I was a waitress at Jerry's Deli Graveyard. So I worked from midnight till 8 in the morning. And lots of crazy stuff happened. We had a pretty big earthquake happen while we were at work, and lots of celebrity. It was always just a crazy party from
That
midnight
would have
till
been 94.
yeah. I was at
It
there.
was a very hot year.
It was a very hot year, and I believe that was the year, I didn't keep track of it, that I remember everyone coming in, a bunch of people coming in from the parking lot going, oh my God, there's a huge black triangle over Ventura Boulevard, floating down Ventura Boulevard. And many people had come into the restaurant telling me that night, that as
I
they
know
were,
someone who saw that from the 405
yeah, so a
and never
huge,
got over it.
no, everyone came in bewildered and
Wow.
befuddled. And this was not, I won't say the same night. I don't think so. But um, so I was waitressing, and a man came in and sat at the counter at Jerry's Deli, and he asked for a coffee, and I looked at him, and he was a thin guy with kind of longish, greasy, black, stringy kind of hair. And I swear to God, Steve, his eyes were huge and solid black. There was no white, nothing else. And they weren't so big that if you were just had your head down and sunglasses, but they were bigger than a human's normal eyes. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm in Hollywood. Maybe this guy just got off his shift at some crazy sci-fi movie and he's trying out his latest crazy eye makeups or something.
Right.
I couldn't even tell you.
I've
Um,
had this description before.
just the black-eyed people. I've heard people say the black-eyed people. And he ordered a cup of coffee. I gave him a cup of coffee. He left a $20 bill. He didn't talk much and he left. But I
Wow.
couldn't focus on anything while he was there. I just was, I wanted, I don't know what I want. I didn't want to ask him who he was because I was afraid. I didn't want to and mention his eyes. And not afraid like I'd be hurt, but I guess more afraid of what would happen, what the answer might be. And he left, and I never forgot him. I still think about him to this day. I don't know who that is. Earl seems to think maybe I was visited by someone who maybe knew me on the ships. Like, and you just, so all my memories are just waking memories. But these black-eyed people, like, who else has seen these? I've heard a few other people, but from what I understand, some kind of hybrid. I'm not sure, but
There are other people, and I've heard this before, and it's kind of chilling. I'm like having a deja vu moment. I'm not sure that you didn't tell me this story once before, but I have definitely heard it from other people.
yeah, the same thing. And then another thing, and this happened the most recent, was I woke up in the middle of the night, laying in my bed, and I just sat bolt upright, just 90-degree angle, and I looked around the room, and my room was full of a glowing fog, like a blue white glowing fog. And I literally thought, am I dreaming? I'm going to pinch myself, but I couldn't move my arms. My arms felt like they had been, paralyzed for surgery or something. I could not move my arms. And I remember I finally got one arm to kind of flop, and I thought, am I dreaming? And I thought, of course you're not dreaming. You just woke up. You just sat up. And then I smacked my leg. I could feel my leg. And then I thought, well, I'm not going to solve this mystery in the middle of the night. And I literally flopped back down and went to sleep. And my husband was sound, and he goes, why didn't you wake me up? And I said, to be honest, I just felt very loopy and tired and groggy, and it was just very weird. And I didn't smell smoke. I remember thinking, is the house on fire? And then I thought, I've never had fog get in my house from outside, but it was the summer. So I was like, why would we have fog in like August? Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, we get the June gloom, but it's never been in my house. And I've heard a couple other people mention that as well. And then my whole life, I hear beeps that aren't there. I know that sounds crazy. I mean, probably not to your audience, but almost like tones. Like, I won't say like a hearing test, but it's somewhere between a hearing test and music. Like, these high, almost like a tuning fork kind of a, and I would hear
Sure.
them driving in the house. I've torn my house and car apart. I don't do this anymore, but looking for something that could be making these tones to me. That,
You'll
like,
never find it because I've
no, I
had
never
that.
did. Never did.
Also, I hear this droning sort of didgeridoo sound, and I've been hearing it ever since I went to Avon's. It never goes away. I can be up in the mountains in the quiet of a forest, and I can hear it. It's with me all the time.
Yeah.
So there's things like this that you just never can find a source for, but
Yeah.
you can bet they have something to do with this.
Yeah, they're clear, and it's not like when your ear rings. It's not that. It's not, so and a lot of this stuff you remember because it's so bizarre and repeats itself, and it's there. It's something in the room. It's not in my head, and it happens. Even other people hear it. Like, I said to
Mhm.
my brother once. I said, lately I've been getting a lot of weird phone stuff. And he said, what do you mean? And I just said, like, weird stuff has been happening on the phone. And we were talking a little bit, and I go, oh, what's that sound in the background at your house? Is one of the kids playing with a game? And he said, I thought that was at your house. And I said, no, what are those? What is that music that I just heard behind you, those little musical notes? And he said, that's not at my house. I thought that came from your house. So
Mhm.
other people hear it when it's happening. It's not just me hearing it in my head. So I don't know. I can't explain it all, but Earl seems to feel I'm fully legit a abductee, and I'm going to go with that. I'm sure there's more to these
He
memories.
said that. He said as much to me and
Yeah.
Mary about the black-eyed people too. I don't know. You probably haven't seen all my artwork, but that was one of the things I dealt with once, and it was a woman, and she. I mean, her face was very so almost Asian and just this incredible complexion. And she had black hair and bangs, and but their eyes were, I don't know if they were pure black, but they were really dark and they were larger than normal. And this was very striking. And I woke up with her literally sitting on top of me, looking down at me. And I was on a table. Yvonne had, I remembered it, but Yvonne wanted to put me under hypnosis to see what else came out.
Right.
And so I know that this, I think there's some kind of hybrid. I mean, that's just my feeling. So when you were talking about him, I could see him. And did he had long hair?
Yeah, like shoulder length, kind of greasy
Yeah.
stringy hair.
with the bangs parted in the middle, like
Yeah, like yeah, exactly. Bangs parted and kind of
yeah,
greasy.
yeah.
I don't think he even had, it was kind of just stringy to the side. But yeah, like, and he was wearing like jeans and a leather,
He was
like
dressed like any normal human
maybe
being.
he rode in on a motorcycle. I didn't see what he came in on, but yeah, he was
Wow,
dressed kind of like a cool,
wow. Okay.
normal, cool guy. I don't know, but it made me wonder. So since I was a child, and I know I only have a few minutes here, is
When
I've
he
always
spoke, did he use his mouth, or did you just know what he was saying? I mean,
I don't. He
sometimes
was, now that you say that, he was looking down most of the time. So I'm not. I'm pretty sure he used his mouth, but it was in the '90s, and he was like this a lot of the time. But when I came to
yeah,
order, you make eye contact when someone orders from you. And he just looked up, and I like almost couldn't talk. Like I remember, it took me a moment to go. What can I get you?
yeah, I
It
get it.
paused me.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So
Anything else that you'd like to share with us as we come
I
up on
don't.
the
Well, there's more, but perhaps for another time. But I've always had this connection. I've heard you kind of talk about it. I call it him. There's a voice in my head. It's not my own. It tells me things that always, if I hear, and it's not, I don't have like a two-way radio conversation with this person all the time. Like some people say, I got a higher spirit, and I'm talking. And it's like, no, this him, when he talks to me, it just it's there, it's clear, it's another voice, it's not mine, and it's always true. And he's told, and often things just about my personal life, things that were going on that I was worried about, like I've heard that's not going to happen, and it didn't happen. Something that I was and I know that may sound vague or silly, but he
no,
when
not at
I
all.
when I first started getting into the UFO stuff, or I went out, I went outside and I watched, I don't know, it was some document. What's the guy up north, Stan Romanek or something?
Oh
And
yeah, Stan. Right?
yeah,
I was one of the first people to be asked to investigate him and his videos before any public knew about him.
yeah. So he's got a fascinating story, and there's documentaries about him, and you can see it.
And they've
And
tried to smear him.
yeah, they so but they try to smear everybody who has a story. So
Sure.
but I remember, asking, like, is this what you're doing? Like standing outside looking at the sky, and I go, is this what you guys are doing? You're just peeking in people's windows and creeping them out at night? Like, why would you do that?
Oh
And
no.
and then he said, that him, he said, we don't peek in windows, we walk through walls. And I
Wow.
was like, yes, that does happen too, like they
A
do
lot
walk.
of one-liners, correct?
What was that? Yeah, of all the one, like, yeah, we don't peek in
Yeah.
windows, we walk
If
through
if,
walls. And
if I
like,
ask right now, are you there? They answer right back, yes.
right.
It's just it.
And our
It's not
reality
me. I
is,
know it's not me. They've made
no,
that clear.
no, they say things I wouldn't say in a tone I wouldn't say it, and stuff that I don't even believe. And then I test it when it tells me something. I'll be like, I'll make that happen, and I can't make it happen. Like I won't get into specifics. Maybe off camera I'll tell you, but there's stuff like
Yeah.
specific that it was just crazy. But yeah. So that guy, he's there, and it's also something I've always had since childhood. Like I have memories of, I guess, called astral projecting, watching school from the upper corner of the room, being up by the clock, not in my body. And so that's always been
Ooh.
fairly easy for me. Like
Yeah.
I can close my eyes and I go to this dark room. Since I was a child, like my family, like we weren't metaphysical. We weren't into like yoga and meditation and stuff. This is just like my own stuff. I've come, but I
Right.
can close my eyes. I can go into this dark room where the walls fall away almost like the Matrix, and it's like endlessly big, and then interact in some way. And it's just something I do on my own. Like I'm sure some training would help me, but yeah, I've had
Meditating is really powerful. If you start to
meditation.
do it and you really quiet your mind, that's
Yeah,
when the communication is so amazing that it's you have to question it, but then it verifies itself. It will
it
find a
does.
way to do it because when I, you know, it was only a few months ago. I'm laying in bed and I said, "Is this real? I mean, come on. Okay, so I've seen you in the kitchen face to face. There's no question, but I didn't have a witness, so maybe I was just delusional. And all the other things I've seen, the big triangle over the house, and have witnesses and everything, and still you question it."
I
And I questioned it. I said one more time. I said, is there some way you can show me something I can't deny that absolutely? And so what did they do? I wake up one night, and I think I shared this with you. Uh, I'm in bed. I look over. Oh, Mary's not there. I need to go to the bathroom. So I wait for her to get out, and she doesn't. And so I go to check, and she's not in there. And I get this little streak in my heart. And so I go, well, maybe she went to sleep on the couch for some reason. Maybe it's keeping her awake. So I check the couch. She's not there. I go back to the bed. She's not there. I check the meditation room. She's not there. I check the kitchen, the backyard, the garage, my hobby shop in the back. I check the whole place. She's nowhere to be found. By this time, I have to really go to the bathroom bad. I'm standing there going to the bathroom, and I'm thinking, what's going to happen? I mean, it was just so
Yeah. Do
freaky.
you
And
call missing persons? What do you do at that point in the
they're
middle of
never going to believe me. I mean, so, you know, when I went to check for her that second time, I remember pulling the covers up and just putting my hands on the bed. So I go to the bathroom and I come back in, and there she is. And the same thing had happened to her only 2 weeks before that.
with you?
That that was one hell of a way. They knew that's something I'd have to accept over
Yeah.
seeing them or anything else.
Yeah. She's not there.
Yeah. Wasn't that a song? But she's not there.
She's not there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Don't sing too
Well,
much.
it's good
You'll
to
watch
have humor about this stuff.
yeah.
Wow.
So yeah,
We're over the hour,
yeah.
but still, I'm gonna. But still, if there's anything else you'd like to share with us, and I can't begin to express my appreciation to you for the work you're doing and spilling your guts
Sure.
on the show. Is there anything else you'd like to say in closing?
No, I mean, look, there's lots of like I loved. I'll give you a book if anyone wants a book that I love. I loved what is it? The Bible and Flying Saucers, the book by Reverend Barry Downing. It's literally if you've read Chariots of the Gods, it's kind of the follow up, and he literally talks about all the abduction encounters that happen in the Bible. He's a physicist, so he has a degree in physics and then a theological degree from Princeton, and then another degree from Edinburgh, PhD. Like he's a very smart guy, and was ostracized by a lot of people in the religion and
Of
outside.
course.
Yeah. So that book to me was fascinating. I read it so fast. I emailed him on his website. He replied. He's a wonderful guy. But if you're at all, if the miracle aspect of like Fatima, the religious, if you want to see that, he talks about the Exodus, which started the whole Bible as one of the biggest abductions of all time and the longest, because the ETs took a large group of people out to the desert for 40 years and we're able to do all sorts of things out there with them. And the way he describes it, he spoke to the ERT team recently and people were just amazed. Like I had never
I
even
can
thought,
imagine.
yeah, like I'd never even thought of the Bible this way, as being able to look at it as a series of abduction. I mean, and you look at it and you go, oh my God, it's like all right there. It's just right there. And he loves the Lord and he's a Christian and all of that too. So I don't think, for some people who feel like these are good or bad or angel demonic, it's just not even that. It's like, go educate yourself, find out about these experiences, see what it means to you. There's so many out there that you can't deny it. And just thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
Maybe we can chat
absolutely.
again
Thanks for coming.
sometime. Yeah.
And thanks for working with us and helping us with this channel. It's greatly appreciated. Earl did that uh, constantly. I mean, we were getting texts from him all day long, like you were, and a couple of phone calls a day, sometimes more. He was always looking out for us, always trying to find people to come forward like yourself and speak about this. So
He was a
we,
big believer in your work, and you guys help a lot of people. And if I can help anyone by being on your show, I'm happy to do the same thing. And
you
I
just have, you just have.
appreciate your
So
work too. Good, good.
thank you, CJ.
All right. Thanks.
I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.